I, for one, am in complete awe of what Microsoft has built with Cosmos DB. This shouldn't even be referred to as a database because it really sounds pure fiction. You'll see what I'm talking about as I begin to explain to you what Cosmos DB really is. When I began in IT, the only type of database I ever heard of, and the only time I even thought about a database, was in relational database management systems, or RDBMSs. I didn't really think of this as a model. I just thought that's what databases are, that you essentially connect products to sales to customers. And that's it. And then you write some type of CRUD, create, read, update, delete operations against it. And then you write some reports against it, and that was it. There wasn't anything more to databases. The furthest thing from my mind was the ability to scale a database globally. If you wanted to scale a database globally back in those days, and what I mean by back in those days is really not that long before the cloud. It was very hard, very difficult, something you had to build, you had to construct, you had to maintain, you had to support. And dealing with latency issues, dealing with update synchronization was a major, major undertaking. From those archaic times, we really are here at Cosmos DB. It simply says the database, and the database engine simply says it doesn't matter what kind of environment you are supporting. If you're dealing with SQL, or you're dealing with MongoDB or Cassandra or Gremlin or table-like structures, whether they're columnar, graph, key value, or their document model, it just doesn't make any difference. You can use the key value family or column family or documents or graphing type databases. Pick your API and off you go. But even that's not enough. It's not enough that you can select your database model. It's not enough that you can select your geographical location. It's not enough that you can pick whatever flavor engine you want to work with. You really have to be designed for availability and consistency and low latency, and something that is designed for true enterprise scale. By really thinking about enterprise scale today, think about this whole global situation. We're talking about dealing with possibly trillions of requests per day. Trillions! Isn't it amazing? Microsoft has created its proprietary Atom record sequence. This is a database engine that is what's driving Cosmos DB, and is the database engine, ARS, that is responsible for the actual persistence of data under the hood. ARS. So, whether you are requiring something in the SQL or MongoDB or Cassandra, table-like structures, graphing type engines, it really doesn't matter. Whether you want your database to be local or regional or national or global, that doesn't make any difference either. If you want to deal with trillions of rows or trillions of records of transactions per day, trillions of requests per day, that's perfectly fine too. Cosmos DB is ultimately saying, bring it on. I can do anything that you ask me to do immediately. I want to tell you a little bit about the use cases of Cosmos DB. Here I'm looking at a IoT, Internet of Things. So data comes from, well, wherever. Inside of the Azure IoT Hub, for example, you can use Azure Databricks Spark for structured streaming. You can send that data over to Cosmos DB if you're going to be serving up the data hot or in real-time mode to what would be public-facing or user-facing APIs. You can engage a function, an Azure function, send it off to cold storage inside of Azure Storage, and you can send it off to an Azure data warehouse that later on you're going to use Power BI dashboard to analyze the data that is essentially coming from this IoT, coming from that hub. So, telematics, one reason behind utilizing Cosmos, serving up the data in real time in front of users. And that is not enough. Think about retail and marketing. So you have a browser, maybe this is where the user is coming from, that goes over to an Azure web app that feeds to Azure storage. Maybe logs are stored in there. From that web app, it can grab the product catalog from Azure Cosmos, and session state can be stored in Azure Cosmos, and then Azure Search can go off of Cosmos to get and find the data you're looking for. Remember, this is global scale, and it's immediate, slow latency, high availability. Trillions of requests can be processed per day. All of that applies. So this is the retail marketing scenario. How about change feed? This is another one. You want to make sure that Cosmos, via a function, is able to kick off more functions that are updating things, like, for example, tax information, payment information, fulfillment information that are updated constantly to Cosmos DB. So shopping cart scenario, isn't that true? In a shopping cart scenario, you are paying taxes, making a payment for a product, searching for a product, putting it in your cart, changing your cart around, changing the shipping information around, and so on. All of that can be sponsored by your friendly neighborhood Cosmos DB. So we go from IoT and telematics and retail and change feed. We're sitting here at gaming. So you can have your user or a machine go over to the Azure Traffic Manager via looking at the content delivery network that is being fed from some media files to update things. Azure APIs can communicate with Cosmos DB to maintain the game state, which can store information inside of Azure Databricks using Azure functions to update the notification hub, send off push notifications. Cosmos DB for gaming. So, as I said, we have IO telematics, we have retail and marketing, we have change feed, now we have gaming. That's not enough. There's social applications. Social applications require global access, accessing multiple regions inside of Azure. So you can have Azure Traffic Manager via a browser load balance to the Azure region, depending on wherever your user is, whichever region they belong to, and you can basically leverage the globally distributed Cosmos DB to maintain the app and the session state information. Social applications, another use case, a very good use case for Cosmos DB. And that's not enough. In the retail world, for example, we want to personalize a user's experience. So shoppers can go to the e-com store and there can be an entire online recommendations engine that can be fed or dealt with or stored and managed by Cosmos DB. So if you're buying a certain book, a certain product, a certain service, the online recommendation engine can be fed from Cosmos DB, which is basically communicating with perhaps Azure Container Services, recommendation API, that's a bunch of containers. Eventually, order transactions can be utilizing Cosmos DB, well, to save things. Change feed, again, is updating the personalization, because once I buy something, my online recommendations understands a little bit more about what I like and what I don't like, making recommendations and suggestions. So that can be fed and stored utilizing Cosmos. So what am I saying? What I'm saying is the use cases is truly a one-size-fits-all with Cosmos DB. Whether you have availability and latency or low latency, enterprise scale in mind, whether you have a database model in mind, whether you have a geographical location in mind, or you have different kinds of applications that you're thinking about, utilizing Cosmos DB is the right answer. It's utilizing Microsoft's proprietary Atom record sequence. That's the database engine, as I said, that's making sure the persistence of the data is responsibly kept. Cosmos DB.